MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number Analysis. To find the hidden potential in teams, instead of brainstorming, we're better off shifting to a process called brainwriting. The initial steps are solo. You start by asking everyone to generate ideas separately. Next, you pool them and share them anonymously among the group. To preserve independent judgment, each member evaluates them on their own. Only then does the team come together to select and refine the most promising options. By developing and assessing ideas individually before choosing and elaborating them, teams can surface and advance possibilities that might not get attention otherwise. This brainwriting process makes sure that all ideas are brought to the table and all voices are brought into the conversation. It is especially effective in groups that struggle to achieve collective intelligence. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 01. Concepts are vital to human survival, but we must also be careful with them because concepts open the door to essentialism. They encourage us to see things that aren't present. Stuart Firestein opens his book, Ignorance, with an old proverb: it is very difficult to find a black cat in a dark room, especially when there is no cat. Stuart Firestein. Ignorance. This statement beautifully sums up the search for essences. History has many examples of scientists who searched fruitlessly for an essence because they used the wrong concept to guide their hypotheses. Firestein gives the example of luminiferous ether, a mysterious substance that was thought to fill the universe so that light would have a medium to move through. Firestein. The ether was a black cat, writes Firestein, and physicists had been theorizing in a dark room, and then experimenting in it, looking for evidence of a cat that did not exist. Firestein. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 02. How did the human mind evolve? One possibility is that competition and conflicts with other human tribes caused our brains to evolve the way they did. A human tribe that could outthink its enemies, even slightly, possessed a vital advantage. The ability of your tribe to imagine and predict where and when a hostile enemy tribe might strike, and plan accordingly, gives your tribe a significant military advantage. The human mind became a weapon in the struggle for survival, a weapon far more decisive than any before it. And this mental advantage was applied, over and over, within each succeeding generation. The tribe that could outthink its opponents was more likely to succeed in battle and would then pass on the genes responsible for this mental advantage to its offspring. You and I are the descendants of the winners. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 03. A number of research studies have shown how experts in a field often experience difficulties when introducing newcomers to that field. For example, in a genuine training situation, Dr. Pamela Hines found that people expert in using mobile phones were remarkably less accurate than novice phone users in judging how long it takes people to learn to use the phones. Pamela Hines. Experts can become insensitive to how hard a task is for the beginner, an effect referred to as the curse of knowledge. Dr. Hines was able to show that as people acquired the skill, they then began to underestimate the level of difficulty of that skill. Hines. Her participants even underestimated how long it had taken themselves to acquire that skill in an earlier session. Knowing that experts forget how hard it was for them to learn, we can understand the need to look at the learning process through students' eyes, rather than making assumptions about how students should be learning. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 04. Anthropologist Gregory Bateson suggests that we tend to understand the world by focusing in on particular features within it. Gregory Bateson. Take platypuses. We might zoom in so closely to their fur that each hair appears different. We might also zoom out to the extent where it appears as a single, uniform object. We might take the platypus as an individual, or we might treat it as part of a larger unit such as a species or an ecosystem. It's possible to move between many of these perspectives, although we may need some additional tools and skills to zoom in on individual pieces of hair or zoom out to entire ecosystems. Crucially, however, we can only take up one perspective at a time. We can pay attention to the varied behavior of individual animals, look at what unites them into a single species, or look at them as part of bigger ecological patterns. Every possible perspective involves emphasizing certain aspects and ignoring others. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 05. For many people, ability refers to intellectual competence, so they want everything they do to reflect how smart they are: writing a brilliant legal brief, getting the highest grade on a test, writing elegant computer code, saying something exceptionally wise or witty in a conversation. You could also define ability in terms of a particular skill or talent, such as how well one plays the piano, learns a language, or serves a tennis ball. Some people focus on their ability to be attractive, entertaining, up on the latest trends, or to have the newest gadgets. However ability may be defined, a problem occurs when it is the sole determinant of one's self-worth. The performance becomes the only measure of the person, nothing else is taken into account. An outstanding performance means an outstanding person, an average performance means an average person. Period. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 06. Someone else's body language affects our own body, which then creates an emotional echo that makes us feel accordingly. As Louis Armstrong sang, "When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you." Louis Armstrong. If copying another's smile makes us feel happy, the emotion of the smiler has been transmitted via our body. Strange as it may sound, this theory states that emotions arise from our bodies. For example, our mood can be improved by simply lifting up the corners of our mouth. If people are asked to bite down on a pencil lengthwise, taking care not to let the pencil touch their lips, thus forcing the mouth into a smile-like shape, they judge cartoons funnier than if they have been asked to frown. The primacy of the body is sometimes summarized in the phrase "I must be afraid, because I'm running." MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 07. Restricting the number of items customers can buy boosts sales. Brian Wansink, professor of marketing at Cornell University, investigated the effectiveness of this tactic in 1998. Cornell University, Brian Wansink 1998. He persuaded 3 supermarkets in Sioux City, Iowa, to offer Camel soup at a small discount, 79 cents rather than 89 cents. Iowa Sioux City Campbell, 8979. The discounted soup was sold in one of 3 conditions: a control, where there was no limit on the volume of purchases, or 2 tests, where customers were limited to either 4 or 12 cans. 412. In the unlimited condition, shoppers bought 3.3 cans on average, whereas in the scarce condition, when there was a limit, they bought 5.3 on average. 3.3, 5.3. This suggests scarcity encourages sales. The findings are particularly strong because the test took place in a supermarket with genuine shoppers. It didn't rely on claimed data, nor was it held in a laboratory where consumers might behave differently. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 08. Everything in the world around us was finished in the mind of its creator before it was started. The houses we live in, the cars we drive, and our clothing, all of these began with an idea. Each idea was then studied, refined, and perfected before the first nail was driven or the first piece of cloth was cut. Long before the idea was turned into a physical reality, the mind had clearly pictured the finished product. The human being designs his or her own future through much the same process. We begin with an idea about how the future will be. Over a period of time we refine and perfect the vision. Before long, our every thought, decision, and activity are all working in harmony to bring into existence what we have mentally concluded about the future. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 09. Our homes aren't just ecosystems, they're unique ones, hosting species that are adapted to indoor environments and pushing evolution in new directions. Indoor microbes, insects, and rats have all evolved the ability to survive our chemical attacks, developing resistance to antibacterials, insecticides, and poisons. German cockroaches are known to have developed a distaste for glucose, which is commonly used as bait in roach traps. Some indoor insects, which have fewer opportunities to feed than their outdoor counterparts, seem to have developed the ability to survive when food is limited. Dunn and other ecologists have suggested that as the planet becomes more developed and more urban, more species will evolve the traits they need to thrive indoors. Dunn. Over a long enough time period, indoor living could drive our evolution, too. Perhaps my indoorsy self represents the future of humanity. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 10. The demand for freshness can have hidden environmental costs. While freshness is now being used as a term in food marketing as part of a return to nature, the demand for year-round supplies of fresh produce such as soft fruit and exotic vegetables has led to the widespread use of hothouses in cold climates and increasing reliance on total quality control management by temperature control, use of pesticides and computer/satellite-based logistics. The demand for freshness has also contributed to concerns about food wastage. Use of best before, sell by and eat by labels has legally allowed institutional waste. Campaigners have exposed the scandal of overproduction and waste. Tristram Stewart, one of the global band of anti-waste campaigners, argues that, with freshly made sandwiches, over-ordering is standard practice across the retail sector to avoid the appearance of empty shelf space, leading to high volumes of waste when supply regularly exceeds demand. Tristram Stewart. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 11. In the studies of Colin Cherry at the Massachusetts Institute for Technology back in the 1950s, his participants listened to voices in one ear at a time and then through both ears in an effort to determine whether we can listen to two people talk at the same time. 1950 Colin Cherry. One ear always contained a message that the listener had to repeat back, called shadowing, while the other ear included people speaking. Shadowing. The trick was to see if you could totally focus on the main message and also hear someone talking in your other ear. Cleverly, Cherry found it was impossible for his participants to know whether the message in the other ear was spoken by a man or woman, in English or another language, or was even comprised of real words at all. Cherry. In other words, people could not process two pieces of information at the same time. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14 Number 12. One dynamic that can change dramatically in sport is the concept of the home field advantage, in which perceived demands and resources seem to play a role. Under normal circumstances, the home ground would appear to provide greater perceived resources, fans, home field, and so on. However, researchers Roy Baumeister and Andrew Steenhilber were among the first to point out that these competitive factors can change. For example, the success percentage for home teams in the final games of a playoff or World Series seems to drop. Roy Baumeister, Andrew Steinhilber. Fans can become part of the perceived demands rather than resources under those circumstances. This change in perception can also explain why a team that's struggling at the start of the year will often welcome a road trip to reduce perceived demands and pressures. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14, Number 13. Some deep-sea organisms are known to use bioluminescence as a lure, to attract prey with a little glow imitating the movements of their favorite fish, or like fireflies, as a sexual attractant to find mates. While there are many possible evolutionary theories for the survival value of bioluminescence, one of the most fascinating is to create a cloak of invisibility. The color of almost all bioluminescent molecules is blue-green, the same color as the ocean above. By self-glowing blue-green, the creatures no longer cast a shadow or create a silhouette, especially when viewed from below against the brighter waters above. Rather, by glowing themselves, they can blend into the sparkles, reflections, and scattered blue-green glow of sunlight or moonlight. Thus, they are most likely making their own light not to see, but to be unseen. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14, Number 14. Many evolutionary biologists argue that humans developed language for economic reason. We needed to trade, and we needed to establish trust in order to trade. Language is very handy when you are trying to conduct business with someone. Two early humans could not only agree to trade 3 wooden bowls for 6 bunches of bananas but establish rules as well. 3-6. What wood was used for the bowls? Where did you get the bananas? That business deal would have been nearly impossible using only gestures and confusing noises, and carrying it out according to terms agreed upon creates a bond of trust. Language allows us to be specific, and this is where conversation plays a key role. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14, Number 15. The last 2 decades of research on the science of learning have shown conclusively that we remember things better, and longer, if we discover them ourselves rather than being told them. 2-0. This is the teaching method practiced by physics professor Eric Mazur. Eric Mazur. He doesn't lecture in his classes at Harvard. Instead, he asks students difficult questions, based on their homework reading, that require them to pull together sources of information to solve a problem. Mazur doesn't give them the answer, instead, he asks the students to break off into small groups and discuss the problem among themselves. Mazur. Eventually, nearly everyone in the class gets the answer right, and the concepts stick with them because they had to find their own way to the answer. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 14, Number 16. It is common to assume that creativity concerns primarily the relation between actor, creator, and artifact, creation. However, from a socio-cultural standpoint, the creative act is never complete in the absence of a second position, that of an audience. 2. While the actor or creator him/herself is the first audience of the artifact being produced, this kind of distantiation can only be achieved by internalizing the perspective of others on one's work. This means that, in order to be an audience to your own creation, a history of interaction with others is needed. We exist in a social world that constantly confronts us with the view of the other. It is the view we include and blend into our own activity, including creative activity. This outside perspective is essential for creativity because it gives new meaning and value to the creative act and its product. MTC. Good job.